Welcome to Crypto Changemakers. My name is Danny Green. I launched this show because I want to tell the story about how NFTs and blockchain and crypto are making a really significant impact in the world and on social causes. I think this is a really fascinating story, and I'm excited to share it with you. This isn't financial advice. It's really a chance for education and for us to kind of explore this topic together. And today's topic, I think, is incredibly interesting. It's about how NFTs can be used to address traumatic brain injury, mental wellness, dementia, and basically everything having to do with brain wellness. Our guest is Brian Magierski, who is the founder of CherubsDAO. This is a project that will launch an NFT every single day in an auction format in order to raise money that can then be used for investments and for grants in this critical area. Brian is a fascinating entrepreneur with a personal story that led him to this cause, and I'm really excited for you to hear this episode. Hey, Brian, I'm so excited to have you on Crypto Changemakers and learn a little bit more about your background, your passion, and how you got into this. Let's start with the mission. Tell me a little bit about kind of what is the mission that you have right now and that you're focused on.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. I'm glad to be here and excited about this. Trying to get the word out on this as broad and as far as I can. The mission. So I've started Cherubim Labs. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 3 different software startups. I've done some ventures, licensing brands into China. And I've been fascinated with blockchain and crypto for several years. And my mission is to, Cherubim Labs is a 20, 30-year ambition for me, and it's going to extend beyond that, to really accelerate advancements in brain wellness and longevity. Brain wellness is a ginormous market. It's got a $5 trillion societal impact right now, and it impacts hundreds of millions of people. And across 3 broad categories of dementia, mental health, and traumatic brain injury, I challenge you to find any person, at least in the developed world, that doesn't have a personal story around this, whether it's a friend, a family member, a loved one, or themselves. And if they don't, given the epidemic status of dementia and mental health, they will very soon. And so it's a mass market opportunity. The brain is really the final frontier of human health. We're making tremendous advancements in longevity, but there's really no longevity without brain longevity, and that needs to change. And it's been a slow process. It's not going as fast as it should. Technology is advancing. But I believe in crypto. I believe crypto is it's inspiring to me because for me it was eye-opening in how properly designed crypto mechanisms are just magnificent for organizing people and capital to pursue common missions on a global scale. And so that's really how I'm thinking about it. I just want crypto, brain wellness, impact, and that's what we're building with Cherubim Labs. It'll be a series of projects over time. We've got 2 in mind. What's driven me to this is my youngest daughter. I've got 3 kids, 3 girls. My youngest is 10 now. She was born with Down syndrome. I knew this from birth, from the research and everything, but Down syndrome is a triplication of the 21st chromosome. So she's got 3 21st chromosomes. And it had a lot of things come out of it. One of the things is it's a autoimmune disorder, really. Her immune system's on fire 24/7, 365. And that manifests itself in ultimately is accelerated aging and an early onset of Alzheimer's disease. And so I went really deep on Alzheimer's and got frustrated. I got frustrated with the lack of progress. A lot of funding going at it, but it's all centralized sources going to centralized research bodies, not as much innovation, few hypotheses funded, and therefore decades pass with very little progress. So that drew me to that cause. The first thing we're going to go after with everything I'm doing in Cherubim Labs is Alzheimer's, accelerating solutions to Alzheimer's disease. But it really turned me on to brain wellness and this broader opportunity where I think once we knock that one out, we'll advance well beyond that with everything we're doing.
Yeah. Amazing to have a personal story that kind of motivated you to take personal action, and something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I think it's really interesting that, you've kind of zoomed out from just, you talked about Down syndrome, which can lead to Alzheimer's. And there's always the opportunity to kind of like focus in on a specific area, such as that. Why did you decide to zoom out and think about, brain health at large and include dementia and traumatic brain injury and mental health even in this cause?
Well, part of it is, so I'm doing both. You got to zoom out. So, it's a total addressable market, trying to make sure like we need to marshal a lot of people, a lot of resources. So you really need to kind of lay a vision of where you're going and why, to make it meaningful for a lot of people to join in the mission. But then you got to zoom in and solve something first and focus. And so and how we're rolling this out. So we're going to end up rolling out 2 projects on the heels of each other. The first one's going to be a broader community. So we're trying to build this broader brain wellness community, and really attract the masses to that. And there'll be a lot of benefits of being a part of that community. But then we're on the heels of that, we're going to be doing something that's very specific to Alzheimer's. We're going to be launching an NFT funded and governed impact fund that is going to focus on investing in solutions to Alzheimer's disease. And I'm talking commercial therapeutics, for ROI and impact, but also funding primary research. And so we'll be building this broad community and discussing and covering and having education and even some impact opportunities across all these categories of brain wellness to draw awareness. But then we're going to be investing very specifically around Alzheimer's to start. Amazing.
In Web3, we talk a lot about community, and that community is a driver for the success for a lot of projects. It's interesting, in the philanthropic world, I feel like community isn't kind of what drives it, right? A lot of philanthropy comes from very wealthy individuals who create foundations, or who donate to community foundations or donor advised funds, and then make charitable gifts that way that can make huge impacts on social issues, on innovation in health and wellness. Why do you feel that community is important in the development of a kind of a fundraising or investment tool in this area?
Yeah, community to me in this, it goes back to Web 1 of my first, software company. I always talked about community. I think it was community, capital, and commerce, right? The 3 C's, and it's still there to this day, and we're kind of doing all 3. You need the engaged. I think the more awareness, the more engagement, and then the bigger you can make the community, even you can realize that a lot of people doing small things together can have massive impact, and they can attract mega donors and philanthropists to go toward things. So what we're trying to do there is we're trying to draw the masses in, but then we're also trying to create small clusters where they can in a more focused and organized way that's not 10,000 people, but more like a few hundred people, really innovate. And so you're gonna have these clusters of hundreds, and then really we're going to have a community of tens to hundreds of thousands, but they're going to be operating in these small pods. And a lot of innovation will come out of that, a lot of ideation, and a lot of where it could really attract the big ideas. And I think whether it's a big donor or somebody inspiring some new research or some new progress. So it just, to me, it gives people a way at a small scale to feel like they're having an impact on something massive. And I think with crypto and with NFTs specifically for that community, we're going to be able to create the mechanisms and the utility to allow that to happen. It's an experiment. We don't know where it's going to go, right? It's never been done before. I just think it's really fun to do that. And you're just imagining, well, what would happen if we had 100,000 or 1,000,000 people organized in clusters of 500 each, trying to do something important across these categories of brain wellness, and let's see what happens. And they have an NFT and they get rewarded for doing that type of activity. And on the other side, it's more of a traditional impact, right? We're gonna pool the largest pool of capital that's perpetual and regenerative, and we're gonna have a smaller group of people, probably wealthier people, but directing capital to more innovative approaches to solving some very difficult problems that to date have really been funded by centralized sources that may not be thinking as innovatively as they should be.
I think everything is an experiment in this space, right? We're so new in blockchain, Web3, NFTs, DAOs. All of this is so new right now, and it's all an experiment. And I commend you for kind of jumping into this area and to experiment in this way with it. Tell me why. Like, why did you think that blockchain technology and DAOs and NFTs was ripe for this kind of community building and social impact?
It was a combination of things. I believe, and I've seen in crypto, that if you have that right mechanism, targeted at the right mission, and can inspire people to it, you can really move mountains with crypto mechanisms really fast. And we've just seen things emerge out of nowhere that in 6 or 12 months have done things that are unfathomable prior to this. So I saw that, and I just, thinking about Alzheimer's disease and the challenge and how many decades have gone by without having a solution, and the urgency personally as well as in the world. I just felt if you can fuse those together, it's worth the experiment, right? It is well worth the experiment to go after that. And it was inspired by a number of different things. I looked at DeFi. I said, well, is there something I can do in DeFi here? And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I tried stuff around yields, and I'm like, well, I don't know how sustainable this stuff is. And then I looked at NFTs, and I was like, well, I know there's something here because of the meme value of the NFT, and you can really draw people in with the right meme and the right art and the right story, and that might create a movement. And so I felt like there was something there. And then while I was doing that with DeFi, this CherubsDAO project hits. And if you're familiar with the CherubsDAO, they sell, one profile picture NFT a day at auction. And when they launched, the first one sold for over 600 ETH, and then consistently between 50 and 250 ETH per day they've been raising. And they've got a treasury of tens of thousands of ETH worth, tens of millions of dollars, in less than a year, in like a couple hundred days. And the purpose
and
is
that's without a specific mission. Right? And that's without a specific mission.
The mission was the artwork to, in my opinion, what they're trying to do is create a global brand around this artwork. And it's like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. But I was like, well, if it works for that, what about curing Alzheimer's disease and, broadly, solving brain wellness for the world that's going to need it because we want to live longer. And we all have a family member or a friend or somebody that suffered from some of this. And I was like, well, if it works for nouns, it's got to work for this. And, it's trickier because there's a certain level of expertise that needs to come to the table to solve this, right? And, there's investment decisions to be made on very difficult science and therapeutics. But from a standpoint of finding getting the people that have money, that want to be a part of this and want to be part of a more democratic investment fund that has impact, I think we can inspire people to that. And having that mechanism where we can do this on a global basis and a decentralized basis, yes, that works too. So now it was, for me, it's let's use that mechanism, but let's tailor it like to solving Alzheimer's disease now. And so to me, I was like, that to me works, and I'm like, that I'm going to give that one a shot. That's me. I'm not a research, I'm going to solve, I got to solve Alzheimer's disease. I want to hit these other brain wellness things. I'm not a research scientist, right? I'm not a, I haven't been studying the brain for 40 years. So, but I know for a fact as an entrepreneur with the right mechanisms, I can attract the people that do that to this cause. And that's what we're doing.
And it's really innovative, I have to say. I see a lot in this space, and I really love how you're taking a model that we've seen a lot of success from in the NFT space, and applying it to a social cause. And so I kind of want to reiterate kind of what it is that you're saying. So every single day, there's an NFT that is auctioned off. And this NFT is a cherub, right? An angel. So explain that real fast. How did you choose cherub, angel, and what's the connection there?
Well, so the cherubs. So I got inspired by this because I wanted to have impact, and I knew it was going to be around a health issue. I knew it was going to be around my daughter's health issue, and so I was thinking of how do I, the NFT space and the crypto space, tend to gravitate around strong memes, and specifically with NFTs, strong art. And I was just thinking, I was racking my brain, what can I do that means I care? I want to have an impact. I'm on a mission, and it's good for humanity. And I started looking through a lot of things, started doing some searches, and I came across the cherubs. And these cherubs are they're little fat baby angels, right? So they're chubby little babies with arrows, and they float in the clouds. And they kind of came across in the Renaissance period. They've been associated with various religions. But when you dig into them, it's Renaissance art, so it's kind of cool because I think we're in a Renaissance now. It cuts across cultures and religions. I mean, you can find these things across cultural barriers. So I'm like, okay, well, it's really inclusive. And the art really hadn't been updated since the Renaissance period. So I was like, okay, now I can do a modern take on this and make them edgy and make them look like they're on a mission and make them look more, diverse and inclusive and fun. And so it just gave me a good canvas to guide the art team around. And we've got two different types of art coming out. One's around the community, but for the CherubsDAO itself, we did a really refined version of these cherubs that are really modern. They're fun. They don't all have wings. Some have like rocket wings, some have balloons that they fly with. And, they don't all have arrows. Some are rocking a guitar, and they got shades and a mohawk and green hair, and it's been
you're bringing
fun
some
to
of that
do it.
Crypto punk mentality into the cherub Renaissance art space.
It's the crypto Renaissance, and this is my version of the cherubs Renaissance, and we're going after the brain, right, with this. And so that was a fun part. So I think that's very memeable. The CherubsDAO itself, so how that's going to function, it's going to be similar to how Nouns does. On a daily basis, we'll auction a cherub. We may do more than one per day. We haven't really decided. We'll have to see how we want to build the fund. But basically, when you buy a cherub every day, you compete in an auction for it. And if you win the auction, you get your cherub, and that cherub gives you a membership in the DAO, which is going to function as an impact fund. And so your money goes into the treasury. The treasury will be used to make 80% of it will go to making impact investments. And I'm talking, these are commercial investments for profit into therapeutics, solutions, digital health, anything that's advancing cures or preventatives to Alzheimer's disease. 20% of the proceeds will be used to make research grants. So we're going to be funding primary research, right? We want to advance science, but we also think that might seed future investment opportunities. So how this functions then is because we're doing this on a daily basis perpetually, we have a perpetually funded impact fund. Every day a new member comes in, or more than one, and new money comes in. It's regenerative too. So as we make the investments, when we get a return from one of those investments, we redeploy the capital, 80% for impact investment, 20% for research. My company does, the twist on Nouns is we're not just propagating cherubs, right? We're making investments. So I need I need to source deals. I need to analyze them from a science or clinical standpoint, and I need to analyze them from an investment standpoint. We need to structure them, and we need to sign contracts. So my company will get a fee from the fund to do that work, and we'll get kind of a different version of a carried interest in it to perform the work and manage it. But all we're doing is we're sourcing deals. We'll take deals from, like, if you're a member of the DAO, you want to recommend a deal, you can throw it in and it'll go through our process. We'll spit out a recommendation. Any deal that we recommend for investment or for a research grant, then you as a DAO member get to vote as to whether that would happen. So this is very different than a traditional fund, right? So your NFT represents your interest. You're not getting a distribution. You're not locked in for 10 years. But you're also getting to vote on every single deal. You get to see all the deal flow. You get to participate in contributing to deal flow if you want to. And it's so transparent, right? It's fully transparent. Investment funds are not transparent. They have 10-year shelf lives. They got to do artificial things like sell before they probably should, or, maybe not take as much risk. This can do anything it wants to because it's functioning as a business that's selling NFTs, where we're voting on how to use the treasury. And so it's very different than a traditional investment fund. And I think it's going to be incredibly disruptive. The perpetual funding part's disruptive, the regenerative part's disruptive, and the fact that anybody can step up from anywhere on the planet and buy an NFT membership in this and be part of it is disruptive. And that NFT, is liquid as well.
Yeah, I think that was my next question. So the NFT is liquid. Is there a secondary market for the cherubs as well? Are those? Do you have some sort of royalty built into that if people want to sell them?
No royalty on the investment fund cherubs. So the investment fund's the investment fund. If somebody sells them, that's their membership in that fund. If they want to sell their membership to somebody else or fractionalize it, they can do that. That's all meant to make impact through investing and funding research. Our predecessor project that we're going to be launching before the CherubsDAO is the Cherubs Brain Wellness Community. So this is my community NFT. Okay. So that one's a different NFT. Very different.
So this is completely separate from the kind of Nouns DAO approach of selling one NFT.
Yes.
Okay. But also kind of feeds into the same investment model that you've been describing in the research grant model?
It'll fund research grants, but this is intended to be more like a utility-driven NFT community focused broadly on brain wellness. And we'll do some research grants out of that pool, but it's separate from the CherubsDAO itself.
There's a lot going on here, and it's really well thought through, I have to say. So, to reiterate, there's this daily auction for the Cherub NFT. It gets you a membership, right, into this community, and all of the money that's being raised, that's being put into the treasury, is then 80% of it is being made in investments, 20% of it's going to grants for research, and the investments could actually have an ROI. The money can come back into the fund, will then further make more and more investments. And you and your company kind of is in the back end, researching opportunities to make investments, doing the due diligence, structuring the deals that then can get funded by kind of the community crypto funds that have all come in. Did I get that right?
Yeah, precisely. You got it 100%.
Fascinating. I mean, really,
100%.
Really fascinating. Yeah. And so, again, you're kind of taking a traditional model, and this is kind of where you point out that this is disruptive, right? You're taking a traditional model, but you're kind of turning it on its head a little bit and creating a new funding mechanism through NFTs and crypto and building community in the process. I think that this really does answer the question that we're getting at before of, like, why Web3? Like, why use blockchain to kind of approach this?
Yeah, my friends. So I'm an older guy, so I have friends that are all over the private equity industry. So I have people in private equity that said, KKR, has been dreaming of a perpetually funded fund forever and still hasn't solved it yet. I think we have, and I think because of crypto and because we're willing to step out on the frontier and do this, I think we've got a much more democratic, much more transparent approach to impact funding and possibly the first perpetually funded vehicle.
Amazing.
I mean, my ambition for this, I'm viewing this as a $30 billion moonshot. I think this can be the biggest impact fund on the planet if we're successful. The largest one right now is a $3 billion impact fund, a traditional one. So I'm shooting for at least $3 billion in treasury size, but we added a zero to it to make it really ambitious. So.
I love the big vision that you're bringing to it, and we're very much at the early days of all of this, and yet I think you're putting in that infrastructure and the whole structure of it well to be able to scale, and clearly your past experience in technology development, I think, lends itself well to this.
Thanks. Yeah, it definitely has been well thought out, and it's not to say we're not going to have to pivot along the way. Every project does, but I think we got a good starting point, and we're just putting the final pieces together around assembling our scientific team and our investment team, because that's part of the product. I don't worry about putting this out there because you can't just fork nouns and make this impact fund work. We've tweaked the mechanisms on nouns to begin with, but fundamentally, without the team behind this, this won't work. So those are the last pieces we're putting in, but we're very hopeful. We're not very far away from launching this. The software is running. It's CherubsDAO.com is functional. We got a beta running. We've put this out on Ethereum before on the testnet, and we're running it on Polygon's testnet as well. It works just fine. It's fun. You can play with it. But when we roll it out, we're going to roll it out with the full team and being able to execute as well with the right track records and backgrounds to support that.
So you just mentioned Ethereum and Polygon. So are the NFTs going to be on Ethereum or on Polygon?
Yeah, well, we're evaluating both. The initial thought, with nouns, it was the same as nouns. We want to put all the art on chain fully, especially with something like this. If we, nouns are selling for hundreds, $100,000+ equivalent. Our membership interests we think are going to be, pretty high. We're expecting large dollars per NFT for this in order to have the impact that we want. And as the treasury grows and as the returns come in, the price will be more than justified. So I'm very sensitive to having that art be fully protected forever and not having any issues with, a side chain or, a link to, a database that doesn't exist anymore. But, the honest answer, with Ethereum, with the gas fees and with the level of refinement we put to the art, there is a money aspect of putting all that art on chain that I'm a little sensitive to. So part of it just depends. But I'm kind of looking at both projects and deciding which one's going to make the most sense to go on. But we're ready for either one.
That's interesting. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the other piece. So we talked about the CherubsDAO and so talked about the utility membership.
Yeah. So this is such a big mission and it's impacting so many people. And I think there's so much to be done here by organizing people on a global basis at scale. And I'm also sensitive to inclusion on this as well. And so, if you think about it from a nouns perspective or from a, CherubsDAO perspective, if we do one a day, I'm talking about maximum 365 people that could be part of this in the first year. And, if the buy-in is $25, $50, $100, $200, $500,000 per NFT, it's going to leave a lot of people out that want to be a part of it. So what I'm leading with is I had the original artwork that we created, which is a little bit more clip art style, and cherubs that inspired what we did with the CherubsDAO. So, well, I think I can create a global community dedicated to brain wellness. And we can do this by NFT community sale and keep it at a more traditional price point for 10K NFT, profile picture drops. But I wanted to add a spin to that because I if we're going after a 20, 30-year vision for solving brain wellness and longevity across these major categories, this isn't just about 10,000 people. This could be about millions of people over time, certainly hundreds of thousands of people. And so we'll start with 10,000, but my intention is to build this community well beyond 10,000. And so we're gonna create a couple other mechanisms around this. I'm not going to go into too much of it here, but I'm going to create ways where people can organize in smaller groups, smaller clusters of, say, 500 or so, and then in clusters of 2,500, and then in clusters of 10,000, and then in clusters of 100,000. And so we're going to innovate around that. And the real reason is to drive community engagement, because you can be part of a big community, but if you can also be part of a smaller cohort, that's a fewer number of people where you can engage, more meaningfully and directly, and a topic as rich as brain wellness, I think that's going to add a lot of value. So what we're doing is we've created these. We have these clip art style cherubs that were our original artwork. We're going to sell them in small batches, and we're going to sell a whole collection of 10,000, and then we'll end up probably doing more collections later after that. That'll all be part of this community. And so these will be community NFTs. Nothing specifically promised other than you can be part of the community, but our intention is to deliver utility. And so there'll be a lot of benefits that will be coming, around education, around access to research, around possibly access to our scientific team, and other benefits that we may drop as the community grows over time. So I'm not making any specific promises right now. We have a lot of ideas, and we have some really cool people coming into this community that I think can help bring utility to our Cherub Brain Wellness community NFT holders. But these will be called, the Cherub Brain Wellness community. They'll be NFTs. We'll be doing a sale very soon. And people can, if they go to CherubsDAO.com and find their way to our Twitter and our Discord, if they come into our Discord, there's going to be a link to sign up for the allow list on this. We're probably weeks away from starting the sale on this. At maximum maybe a month or so. So the time is, you definitely want to get into the allow list, and we'll be selling these in batches of likely hundreds over a staggered period of a few months.
Great.
And we'll start. And then the cool thing about that is as you segregate out these cohorts, the earlier cohort that you're in can earn different utility than a later cohort, for example, or a cohort that does something impactful in the community can, earn some utility by doing that. So there's a combination of being early or being engaged that will start earning utility. We're going to probably going to carve 20% of the proceeds out and allow the NFT community to vote on research grants for that as well. Because we do want to advance research, but then I also want to keep enough of the treasury to be able to build value for the community and give it back.
That's great. And we're recording this podcast episode at the end of April. So, it's possible somebody's going to listen to this much later. And I just want to kind of give a sense of timing. So you're thinking about kind of end of May for the launch of this 10,000, to the beginning of the batches of this.
The beginning of the batches of the sale. Yeah. So definitely, as soon as possible, get into the allow list and into the Discord. And then, yes, we do expect we'll start sales sometime in May. It's not a promise yet.
Yeah.
But that's our timeline is targeting toward end of May, early June.
That's great. You mentioned the scientific team. Can you explain that real fast? Like who is the scientific team? What is their role in all of this?
Yeah. So I'm not talking about who yet.
Yeah.
We'll have some announcements coming out that's being built. But the role of the scientific team. So we'll have we're going to build a scientific advisory group. And it'll be a combination of a research advisory committee and a clinical advisory committee. And the purpose of that team, it can be we're intending to build a pretty high-powered team. Every deal that comes through and every research grant proposal that comes through has to go through that committee and be assessed for the quality and likelihood of success of the science. Just like you would, also put it through for investment returns analysis and deal structure through the investment team. So we'll build a group there that will be looking at that will be sourcing deals and also evaluating deals that come from their network and also come from our DAO members before making and then they'll make a recommendation on the science or the clinical likelihood of success. And then we'll have a recommendation on the investment, and then it goes to the DAO for a vote. And if it passes, the investment will be made or the research grant will be made.
Yeah, I suspect that the DAO is going to have a lot of faith in the recommendations coming from the scientific and investment committees.
Yeah, well, this is look, there are a lot of people out there that are impacted by this, and a lot of people with wealth that would want to be a part of making investments here and being able to make decisions on this, or being able to even just be a part of it. I didn't want the barrier to be, I need to know how to assess a biotech, therapeutic or diagnostic for, brain for Alzheimer's disease, right? That's just not like, I can't do that. And I read a lot about this and talk to a lot of people and get involved with a lot of research groups now. So we needed a structure, unlike, a project like Nouns, we needed a structure where we have expertise. But you can still make the fund feel open to everybody, at least that can afford to be part of it, and then democratic and transparent, so they can participate in it. So that was it. As opposed to otherwise you just find good fund managers, you write them a check, and you wait for your quarterly reports, and it's not as engaging or transparent, and it's has less of a feeling of you had an impact on actually solving Alzheimer's disease, even if that ends up being the outcome.
What size investments are you thinking about in that have to be made, for you to be able to participate in an investment, for some of these for-profit new ventures that are doing research and development around brain wellness? How big do those investments have to be for you to be able to be included?
Yeah, they can span. It just depends how much risk you want to take and what stage in clinical development, clinical trials they are. As you go further down the clinical path and closer to market, it gets more expensive. So you have to have larger checks to be able to write. But getting in the early stage when it's coming out of primary research and as promising biotech with a strong team, you can be relatively small checks. And so we'll probably start there, and then we'll also start with as the fund starts getting built, I do want to get us into a couple later stage deals that are closer to, getting through clinical trials and into regulatory approval. So liquidity in public offerings, which can happen before regulatory approval. So in that case, we're going to rely upon our teams to develop relationships with other funds where we could be a small part of a later stage round. So it's just going to take time. So when we're smaller, we'll write some smaller checks on earlier stage deals, and we'll use our network and relationships from our team to get small pieces of later stage deals so we can show some success early on and be closer to liquidity events for some of our early investments. And then as the fund grows and as we prove ourselves and as we get the returns in and regenerate those returns, we'll be able to play a more leading role in the later stage deals with larger checks. Amazing.
I'm interested in kind of going deep in a specific area because I think it's so interesting, which is kind of the legal structure of organizations and DAOs, and because this is so new, right? So I'm the general manager of the MeBits DAO, kind of on the side, my primary role, and we just actually created an LLC in Wyoming, a DAO LLC. There's now a legal designation for DAOs. And in case, we've been using this word a lot, but I apologize if we haven't yet defined it. A DAO is an acronym, DAO, for a decentralized autonomous organization. It's kind of an organization that forms on the blockchain with tokens, NFTs often being the kind of primary token. And so there's now actually the ability to create a legal designation, LLC, for a DAO in Wyoming. This started last year in 2021. A lot of NFT projects, they launch their art without kind of a thought or understanding of kind of what is the legal kind of underpinning of this, and especially when we're talking about kind of transitioning between crypto currencies and actual dollars that you then would, because I assume that when you're making an investment or a grant, they're not willing to accept ETH or BATC from Polygon, right? You're going to actually need to make this in dollars, so there's going to have to be some conversion as well into an actual bank account. For a bank account, you need a tax ID numbers, and to have a tax ID number, you need a legal designation. And so there's all of these complications that exist kind of in legal structures and banking and all of these pieces. How have you approached these challenges?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I laugh at it because you see just DAO mania out there and people slinging forward and really haven't wrestled with that issue. I mean, nouns included. I don't know how they're structured, honestly, but
I think it's all in crypto.
I don't know. One of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, but every one of those sales is a taxable event. I mean, it's a product sale. They got taxable revenue coming into their, to their entity, but I don't know how they're going to deal with that. I guess they're anonymous, but. So it's a real issue for us, though, because you're right. If we're going to go, we're going to be putting investments in. It's not to say we can't do a crypto investment. Like if there's a DAO, a D-side DAO that's doing some great stuff, we can buy tokens in that DAO. That could be a possibility. There just aren't a lot of those out there, and probably none that are on the pathway to cure Alzheimer's right now. So we're going to be investing in traditional biotech, therapeutic diagnostics companies that. We're hoping are going to go public on, New York or London or NASDAQ or something like that. So what we came up with, I didn't like the LLC structure, even with the Wyoming tweak to it. I've been part of a number of LLCs and K1s and all that. You can't have taxes passing down to my individual NFT holders. And so what I've done with Cherubs is I've wrapped it with what's called a Swiss association. And it's a legal structure. It's kind of like a cooperative, and so it's a legally recognized entity. It has a board. It has an executive committee. The executive committee can spend money, can open bank accounts, and can engage in legal contracts. And the NFT members become members of the association. So when you buy an NFT, become part of the association community. And you can vote, and then the board just basically commits that it will enact what the community votes on contractually. And so what that does for me is it turns kind of the association into an entity that's selling cherubs for revenue and taking that revenue and making investments in research grants. And so we make investments for profit, and we use the research grants to offset tax revenues. And I don't pass anything on to the NFT holders. So the taxable entity is the Swiss Association. And so it gave me everything I needed. What I can't do then is I'm not going to be distributing, dividends to my members per se. So there is no regular dividend. So the value accrues in the NFT itself, because the NFT has a voting right over a growing treasury. And a treasury that's making successful investments, and also because you're part of something that's having massive impact. And so I think the bet here is that value can accrue in that NFT as a community member based on the success of the association itself and the size of it as its treasury grows. I'm still evaluating whether we can do one-off payments or returns, but even if we can't, I'm still betting on the appreciation of the NFT from the mission. But the Swiss association structure was the cleanest thing I could find that functions like a cooperative, that allows me all the legal protections, liability limitations for all the members, engage in legal contracts, open up banking, swap between crypto and fiat, sit on boards, all that kind of stuff, without pushing tax down to my members. Now, if the member sells their NFT, that's
a
their own
taxable
personal
event.
choice.
Right.
That's their own taxable event. It's outside of my control.
Right. Right. So selling the NFT is a taxable event to, if there's some sort of capital gains for an individual NFT holder, but you're saying they have no fiduciary responsibility or legal liability associated with the association that they're a part of. This is really innovative. And do you have to live in Switzerland to have set this up?
It's a good question. I do live in Switzerland, but I don't know that you have to. I'm sure with my company, I know I need a Swiss citizen or resident on the board. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure about the association, but because I'm a resident here, I qualify on both. So it hasn't been a topic of concern for me. But yeah.
Well, that's really fascinating, and I definitely learned something new about the Swiss Association. I hadn't heard of this legal designation before, and obviously I'm a little, U.S. centric. Yeah,
it's been talked about a little bit. I'm part of the Bankless DAO, and they've the legal guild has brought up Swiss associations a couple times, and they've looked at these LLCs and I think a couple other structures as well. But it's not in the mainstream, that's for sure.
I'm not surprised, though, that Switzerland is innovating in this area.
That was a big reason for moving here. I mean, I was looking for a jurisdiction that had a favorable regulatory approach to crypto, and were at least laying guardrails, so I at least knew what the rules, what the rules were going to be, and so it's been nice being here.
That's fascinating. Well, we've covered a lot of different areas, from your mission, your personal story, to the launch of the Cherub NFTs, and this PFP project as well, to the legal structure and the scientific team that is helping to evaluate and make recommendations for investments. Is there any areas that you feel like we haven't covered that are important for the audience to understand?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground, Danny. A lot of ground. It was really efficient.
Well, I really appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness in how you're structuring all of this, and ultimately how you're using NFTs and Web3 technology to try to do something really meaningful in the world, and to address an issue that affects all of us. I mean, you said this from the very beginning, that we all have some sort of connection to someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia or mental health challenges or intellectual disabilities or anything like this. I mean, everybody, I think, can relate to this as an issue, let alone just kind of keeping your brain healthy so you can live a long life, right? And so the fact that you're using NFTs and crypto to be able to address this issue is really, really phenomenal. Yeah,
and this wicked cool crypto renaissance character called the Cherub is going to be the symbol of that. So highly encourage people.
You're leaning into the meme.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can be part of this DAO.
The meme is the message, right?
Absolutely. You can be part of this DAO, be part of the DAO, but if you can, join the Cherubs community and you'll have a meaningful role and have a lot of fun and get a lot of utility out of it too.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny.